Ray. And Ray, if you're ready, let's get started.
All right, you can see my screen and hear my voice.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. As Rich said, I want to thank everybody for attending class 4 of this semester. The semester is Raising the Records Management Bar, and we're going to talk about managing the checks and balances and auditing your records management program. For those of you that are new to our program series, we welcome you to it. The recordings are all there for you to listen to. You would have heard in previous classes, I've talked about audit before in saying that you need to welcome audit in. Audit is a positive thing that can help your records management program. In today's class, I'll show you that. At the end of last semester, when we had you complete a survey, one of the things that was asked for fairly frequently was talking about auditing, and that's what prompted today's class. So far this semester, we've gone over gaining organizational support for your program. We talked about the intersection of RIM&E discovery. Last class, we talked about all aspects of metadata. Today, we're talking about auditing. And 2 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence was the #1 requested topic. So we thought that we would end the semester with the most requested topic, and hopefully we'll really delve into that and answer some of your questions there. I am Ray Davis. I'm a senior principal consultant for records and information management here at Innovative Development with over 30 years in the profession, mostly as an end user. And the last 2 stops I've made are dealing with solution providers. The voice you heard before is Rich Slaughter. He's marketing manager for Innovative Development. He tolerates me. He says he likes me, but I know in the end he really doesn't. It's okay, Rich. I know that. But Rich and I have known each other for a long time outside of Innovative, along with our ARMA presence, and just really enjoy coming to today with educational offerings like this. So, are we ready to start class 4? Well, if you turn over the Magic 8 Ball, it's saying yes. I don't know whether any of you know that reference. When I was a child, one of the toys that was in the store was a Magic 8 Ball. It resembled an 8 ball from a pool table, but it had a flat bottom on it. And when you turned it over, there's a little cube inside of it that was floating that would have answers. And sometimes it would say yes, sometimes it would say no, sometimes it would say check back later. But obviously today it's saying yes. So let's get our class started. Today we're going to start by talking about what is an audit. Then we'll go into why you would audit your records management program. We'll talk about the types of audits, the frequency of audits. I really want to get into the audit process. I break that down into 4 sections. Some people may break it down into more. I break it down into 4. We also talk about what can be reviewed during an audit. There's a wide and varied amount of things that can be reviewed, and we'll finish by talking about the value gained from the audit itself, because that audit is extremely valuable to you as a records manager and promoting your records management program. What is an audit? Well, I wanted to give you 2 definitions. The first one is dealing with audit for commercial businesses, and the answer is it's an objective examination of a company's records, internal controls, operational processes, and compliance with regulations to provide an objective assessment and opinion. Are you managing your records correctly? What is an audit for the government? Starts out very similar. It's an objective examination, but then it gets a little bit more specific because it's an objective examination of government entities, programs, activities, functions, or funds to assess their efficiency, effectiveness, economy, and compliance with applicable laws, regulations, policies, and procedures. Ain't that a mouthful? That's a lot. But you can see that, again, it starts out similar. It's an objective examination of exactly what you're doing, whether it's commercial business or whether it's government, and all the things you have going on inside of it. One of the questions that I get asked all the time is every company required to perform an audit? And the answer is not in the commercial business world. For publicly traded companies, the answer is yes. There are certain things that you have to do from an audit perspective to make sure that information is available to people and organizations that want it. For privately held companies, the answer is no, you don't always are required to perform an audit, but there's reasons why a private company would consider it. If they're trying to verify to their lenders or their creditors that they're still credit worthy, they'll provide a financial audit that, of their bank accounts and their business, their profits and their losses, hopefully no losses, hopefully all profits. But it's just an audit is something you can give to your lenders or creditors to confirm that you're a good customer for them, that they should lend you the money, or perhaps you're going out for new money. You're going out for a loan, you've never had one, or maybe you'd like to establish a relationship with a creditor. They're going to ask you for certain financial information, and audit will provide that. If there are investors to your organization, you want to make sure your investors feel comfortable with your organization, and that them investing the money in you is going to bring back something for them. When it comes to mergers and acquisitions,
Are you
and
kidding me?
I was in the financial services industry for a long time. The only merger or acquisition that I was ever on the wrong side was the last one, which is why I was out of banking. But anytime two organizations are going to merge or somebody is going to acquire another organization, they want the financials. They want to know that there's good operating procedures, that the companies are financially in a good position. There's no legal action against them. There's a whole bunch of things that audits will bring out, and they want to know that through mergers and acquisitions. And also, if you're an organization that has to conform with regulatory requirements, you want to make sure that there's some type of audit done that's saying that you are conforming with those regulatory requirements, and people have a comfort level with that. When it comes to the government, I don't have an answer for you. So I'll just put this out here to any of our government listeners. If you want to type into the chat box, and Rich, if anything comes back in, feel free to stop me and interrupt me and give them the answer. From a government perspective, whether it be a federal government office, a state government office, a local government office, are you required to do an audit? I don't know the answer to that. So if you can share that with our attendees by typing that answer into the chat box, Rich will announce it and let everybody know, because it's always important to find out, what are the similarities and the differences between the various industries where records management is being performed. It's important that we as records managers have our own certifications. We talked about that in previous classes. There's a number of them out there, the CRA, the CRM, the IGP, the CIGOA, or the CIGO. The CIGOA is the association that oversees it. So it's important that when we're telling our employers that we're qualified to be records managers, that maybe we have some of those certifications and credentials that show that we're a professional for our own organization. And I just went out there and checked out, and yes, there are, just the same for auditing, the auditing profession, there are a number of organizations that offer a number of certifications or certificates. So as an example, the Institute of Internal Auditors puts out a certified internal auditor certification, an internal audit practitioner certification, and also certification in risk management assurance. The American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, they obviously oversee the CPA for certified public accountants. So if there's a financial audit, and you're using an outside firm, you definitely want to make sure that you're using someone that has that type of credential. If it's more about the technology side of it, Information Systems Audit and Control Association, they have a number of certifications, whether that's a certified information systems auditor, certified information security manager, or certified in risk and information systems control. And then finally, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, they have their own designation, the CFE. And it kind of makes me, that last one, when I saw that and I put it into the presentation, about a year ago, maybe a little less than a year, but about a year ago, there was a financial organization in the United States that was caught for fraud. They were actually money laundering for multiple drug cartels, which obviously is against the law. It was discovered, investigated, and tracked through the number of transactions that were done over a period of time and the amounts of those transactions, as well as internal email communication with employees actually saying to their superiors, I think this is illegal and I don't think we should be doing this. So, boy, when I read Certified Fraud Examiner, that's the first thing that came to my head. And it was one of those things where I've always said that the majority of people out there are doing things properly. They're not breaking the law, and they're not going to. They're going to run their programs or do whatever they have to do in full compliance with whatever they should. There's just that small percentage of people that are going to test it, and they're going to try, and they shouldn't do that. And that fine, which was for that bank a year ago, was $3 billion, and that's B as in boy, 3 billion. There have been a number of things that have been organizations that have been fined over the years, and the fine is like a drop in the bucket. It doesn't even, it's like lunch money to them. So unless the fine hurts, it's not going to stop people that are doing wrong and doing fraud. And I can guarantee you that a $3 billion fine, you better believe that is definitely of the level that's going to capture someone's attention and make sure that they stay in line and don't do the wrong thing. Just got a message from Rich, and our friend from Florida, Mr. Tim O'Toole, is checking in, and Tim said it's not required for an audit, but participate in records and information management audit every 5 years in local government. So thank you very much, Tim, for shouting out for that and letting us know. Greatly appreciate it. Every now and then I'll give you advice. Take it for what you want. I think it's good advice. But again, take it for what you want. And I will be the first one to tell you that audit is your friend. I've talked about this person on the air multiple times. He's probably one of my favorite bosses I've had over the years. We keep talking about, he's retired now, so we're going to get out on the golf course. And we've talked about that for the last few years, and it's never happened, but hopefully this will be the year that it does. He lives a short distance away from me, and his name is Bob Heyman. And Bob was the one that taught me that audit is your friend. You disclose everything to audit. You tell them everything you're doing. You show them all the different things going on in your program and how you do it and why you do it and when you do it, because you want them to know everything. Because in the end, you want a glowing audit report. You want them telling you that you're doing it right and keep doing it right. And that's something that you can use to tell your organization so that they can jump on board and understand that you're doing it as well. Now, what a lot of people think about auditors is that audit is the enemy, that they're there to find the bad stuff or they're there to find the dirt. As I said just a short bit ago, the majority of records managers are doing the job exactly the way that it should. So they have nothing to worry about. So if you're a person that's doing it wrong, if you're a person that's running a program that's got dirt to find, I can understand why you don't want an audit. But I also wish you weren't running a program, because we don't need people like you giving records management a bad name. We want people in place that are running their programs legally in full compliance with the law and regulatory legislation. So I want you to reverse your thinking. Audit is not the enemy. Audit is your friend. And they're there to document that you have a legally compliant program. That's the goal. So again, just reverse your thinking. Sometimes they'll see the email from audit, or they'll see audit walking through the door, and all of a sudden they start to panic. Don't do that. Get up, shake their hand, give them a smile, and welcome them through the door, because they can be your biggest supporter if you just let them. We're going to go through a number of questions now. And the first question is, why audit your records management program? There are a number of reasons why you audit a records management program. And it's all about sharing the good news, letting people, your end users, your coworkers, your customers, the C-suite, and those of you that may have information go to the media. When I was in banking, well, that for the bank that had the problem with the processing money for the drug cartels. Yeah, that went right into the media. But there's nobody in all my years of banking and running records management programs, no one from the media ever came to my office and said, Ray, I want to put an article out there on your program. Tell me about your program. The media's never done that. So who you're trying to get the good information for is the people that it matters to, your coworkers, as I said, senior management, your customers, and that you're ensuring compliance. You're and you're following all the laws and the regulations that you should. You're in full compliance with them. And audit also helps identify weaknesses and risks. There's a lot of things out there now. We hear it all the time about data breaches or hacks, or cybersecurity issues. And then also when we run our records programs, and I know I've said this probably way too many times, but I've been in records management for over 30 years. And I can tell you every few years, you're changing how you're running your program, whether it's because from my time in mostly physical records management, and then we went to electronic records management with a mix of physical. You could be doing things on site, then it's off site. I went from managing a bank that was in 2 states, New Jersey and Pennsylvania, with 28 branches. And by the time I was done, we were 20 years later, we were from Maine to Florida with 1,200 locations and over 50 operations buildings. So over those years of my program, I not only had to worry about geographically where I was at, but what laws govern those geographical areas, and identifying those weaknesses and the risk that presented itself because of it. We also want to improve efficiency and effectiveness. Again, every year, I've also said to everybody that along with running records management, I ran purchasing, or strategic, we call it purchasing. Some people call it strategic sourcing. And every year, whether it was contract management or vendor management and what we were doing, I would always go out to my vendors and I always say to them, you can only drop your prices so much until the prices are so low you can't support it, and either service is going to be horrible or you're going to go out of business. So I'm not going to come to you every year and say, lower your prices. My senior management would like me to do that, but I'm not going to do that because I know that my vendors have to make money to pay their bills and their employees and to provide a level of service I'm looking for. But what I can ask my vendors, and you can too, is how can you help me be more efficient? How can you help me be more effective? So whether it's through products and services that are being offered out there or different things that vendors can do, and sometimes it means you may need to switch vendors or change products. There are things that you can do to improve that efficiency and effectiveness. Vendors can help you do that. Your own staff can help you do that because they use those products and services each and every day. So make sure you include your own staff in that analysis, asking them, how can we be more efficient and be more effective? And audit can do that for you as well. It's really huge to me that you have a good reputation. I'd love to say stellar. We'll go where we can get. If it starts with good and moves to great or stellar, that's fantastic too. But an audit helps you demonstrate that there's accountability and transparency in your program. You're not hiding everything. You fully disclosed everything. And you're accountable not only to your customers, but to all your employees and senior management as well. And finally, number 5, you want to foster an environment for continuous improvement. As I said earlier, I'm not going to do records management 3 years from now the way I'm doing it today. Something is going to change, and that's for the good. And for that to happen, we have to make sure that we're willing to make those changes and that we're open to those changes. I don't know whether I told this story or not. The first job I had out of high school was at a bank, and I was sending money electronically around the country through a program called wire transfer. We were in a rectangular room. They needed to move us across the hall because human resources needed more space. They were going to break down the wall because human resources was on the other side, and they were going to take up the employee lounge that was across the hall. That was going to be our new wire transfer room. We were moving from a rectangular room to a square room, and my boss hated it. He didn't want it. He fought it. They even measured the square footage of the room to prove to him there was more room in the square room than the rectangular room, and he didn't care. 2 weeks after we moved in, he thought it was the greatest thing that ever happened. He couldn't understand why he fought it. There are just those people that are resistant to change. I've been in records management for over 30 years. Electronic records is the way to go. Can we manage paper records? Absolutely. Are there times that we need to manage records in paper format over electronic? There can be. And when that happens, you need to do it. But, we're in 2025, and electronic records and all the tools to manage electronic records is much more efficient and effective, cost effective, as well as people effective. So again, always look for continuous improvement in whatever you're doing. I'll also share something with you, and it was something a vendor said to me, and it was about my last organization where I ran the programs. We had our own slogans. We were America's most convenient bank. Our programs were wow the customer, going above and beyond the call of duty whenever you can for the customer. And there were some other customer focused efforts. There was our culture. And when trying to implement a couple things, one of my vendors said, this will never happen at your organization because of your culture. And culture eats strategy for lunch. I will never forget that as long as I live. Culture eats strategy for lunch. And, there are some vendors, products, and services that may have been cost effective, but didn't provide us the level of speed and efficiency and quality that we were looking for. So while we would have liked to have saved money, our culture would have rejected that. So again, understand your own organization. And if you have a powerfully strong culture that may be customer focused, you have to be really careful. Will the products and services that you're looking to bring into your program, will they work? Will your culture allow that to happen? Types of audits, and we're going to break types of audits into a couple different areas. The first type of audit, it's about the who. And this isn't regarding people in general. It's about also the size of the organizations, and also maybe what industry you're in. Over time, for me, there are internal audits and there are external audits. Internal audits are done, either the self audits done by your own department, or perhaps you have an audit department. We did at the bank. Any bank I belonged to had an audit department. So you have your own internal audit department that is slated to go around your entire organization, and that's all they do all year long is go from department to department and do audits. Records management would just be one of them. If you're a small organization, maybe you're a one-person records department or a couple people, maybe you don't have an audit department. You'll do what they call self-audits. Even when I was working for Commerce Bank, which was from Maine to Florida in 1,200 branches, I had a staff member who every month picked randomly 2 to 3, we call them cost centers. I've heard them called responsibility centers, but it's whatever number you use to identify in banking a branch or a department. They would pick 2 or 3 at random per month, and they would audit everything that happened for that location. Was it really their boxes that went into their account or their folders or their electronic records? Was it really theirs? Who accessed the system? Did they have the rights to access the system? All the way down to invoicing. Were they charged the right price by our contract for the products and services that they were engaged with? So even as a really large bank, and even though I had an internal audit department, I still had a staff member, and that usually took a day or so if he did 2 or 3 or 4 departments, to do a full random audit of those, say, 3 or 4 locations. So again, internally you can have self audits, you can have an audit department, or if you don't have an audit department, maybe you can engage with somebody that's in your financial area for a financial audit. It just shows people you're looking. It shows people that you're paying attention and that you're trying to spot the good stuff and tell everybody about it, and you're going to cut the bad stuff off. If you find somebody that's doing something, you're going to tell them the right way to do it, or if boxes are appearing in somebody's cost center, it should be somebody else's. Why is that happening? And you'll correct it. And then, again, you stop it very early. The other type of audit is the external audit. Audits can be done by accounting firms. There are auditing firms out there. In banking and other various regulated industries, there are federal regulators. And then there are also government auditors that come out, depending on your industry and your profession. Um, what auditors from the government may come out. I think we think about the IRS from a personal standpoint, and we're getting close to that one too. April 15th is looming near, shall we say. So those are the types of audits, internal and external. And then when it's the type of audits about the what, there is a number of audits that can happen. There can be a financial audit. Like I said, engaging, if you're a small company, maybe you can engage with somebody who does your finances internally, and there can be a financial audit, or you may, have a CPA come in and do something like that. There could be performance audits, how you do what you do. Compliance audits, what are the laws and regulations that your organization has to comply with, and are you complying? Information systems, what are you using? What technology are you using, whether it's yours, whether it's your vendors, and what audits have been done of those systems to make sure that that is being managed properly. Policies and procedures, we need them. The procedures tell you why, the policies tell you how, and it needs to be noted in an audit that you have the right policies and procedures, that they acknowledge they're written correctly. And they'll also talk about whether they need to be updated. We'll talk about this in a minute, but policies and procedures don't have to be updated every year. But there is a point in time where you should definitely look to see, even is the way you're managing your organization changes, not just from a records management standpoint, but from a performance standpoint, that your policies and or your procedures need to change at the same time. There is always a reason to audit your contracts. Number one, you want to make sure that the contract is current and valid. In an audit, you'll make sure that you're being charged the appropriate pricing that's noted within your contract. And most importantly, you don't let a contract expire. It either has to be canceled or renewed. I can tell you in my time in purchasing that I have seen more contracts roll over and renew without the end users realizing it happened. And you have to be very careful in a renewal what the vendor can do to your pricing if the contract rolls over versus you negotiating. How do I word this properly? Contracts are written in the favor of the organization that wrote it. So if a vendor presents a contract to you, and I'm not saying they're trying to rip you off, but there's going to be terms in that contract that obviously are in favor of the vendor. If you write the contract, you're going to write terms into that contract that are favorable to you and your organization. That's just normal. If a vendor tells you that you have to use their contract, that they will not accept yours, then sit with them and take that contract with a red pen, because that was my reputation with vendors. I redlined more contracts than you can imagine of terms that I would not accept and that we would have to negotiate. You may not get everything you want, but you can get what you negotiate. And what you put in those contracts, audit will make sure that when they do their review, what you're paying for and the services that you're using are in line with your contract. And then vendor management as well. You want to make sure that your vendors are qualified vendors. I can tell you that who I may have used as a records management vendor when I was in 2 states and 28 branches was probably not who I was using when I was 1,200 branches from Maine to Florida and over 50 operations buildings. Some vendors are local and they're great. Some local vendors can be great. Regional vendors can be great, but you need to align yourselves with the vendors that can do the job you need done. And if you want to go with local vendors, that's a lot to manage. I wouldn't recommend it for what I was doing. If it works for you, I can't tell you not to do it. But these are the types of audits that you can get at any point in time. And I just wanted to give you an example, here, frequency of audits. Um, Audits may vary based on your industry. In the banking industry, especially with internal audits, we were always audited once a year. Sometimes it might be, it might be 10 or 11 months. It was usually 12 months, but anywhere between 10 and 12 months. Sometimes it was 13 months later. So it wasn't always a perfect 12 months. But in banking, I don't know what it's been in there because I've been out of banking for a little while now, but it was usually once a year. An audit may depend on your budget or staffing resources, and I hope that's not the case. You need to have an audit done, period. Even if it's a self-audit, do something. Show that you're reviewing what you're doing if you have to do it. But if your organization tells you they don't have the budget or staff to do an audit, find a way to do it yourself. Start with baby steps. Do smaller audits like we did. Pick a couple cost centers. Make sure that the invoices are being done correctly. Make sure the services are being performed, but get something done. Audits can be all inclusive on an annual basis where an audit department comes in and they review everything all at one time. Or audits can be on specific things on a rotational basis because some things may not make sense auditing every year. And I wanted to give you a couple of examples of that. On an annual basis, an audit department may come in and review the accuracy of your paper and electronic records with your end users, from records creation to how they're being stored, who's the owner, all the way through disposition on an annual basis. Because invoices are coming out every year, they may do an invoice review every year. And they'll probably come and check your security access. And everything in this annual review deals with paper and electronic records. Because the life cycle follows paper records, the life cycle follows electronic records, and so do the invoices. And security access deals with, yes, the electronic systems your records are stored in, but also how you're storing your paper records when you have to do that. It's extremely important that there is some type of focus when they're doing the review on security and access of your records. Chain of custody is big for me. It's easily tracked within the appropriate records management software or electronic system because, just as we talked about last class, where a property section of your documents is tracking metadata in the background, your systems are tracking metadata of who logged in, when they logged in, where did they go when they were there. It's a little bit more difficult when it comes to the tracking of chain of custody of physical records. When I first started the records program in 2 states and 28 branches, I actually had multiple drivers in multiple vans picking up and delivering records. And we also delivered supplies as well. We were an in-house program for that. So chain of custody was actually tighter when I was a smaller bank because my own departmental people were making the pickups and deliveries of records. When you get larger like we did and you have vendors in multiple footprints and they're picking up and delivering records, locally we had regional transportation hubs, and we called them runners. They were transportation drivers. We called them runners. They would pick up boxes and files and deliver them back to the regional centers, regional transportation hubs. And then the vendors will come out and pick them up and return them back to inventory. There's a lot of gaps there for chain of custody, and that's always concerned me. So, make sure that, you talk to audit about verifying the security and access of your records electronically, obviously, but definitely track what's going on with your paper if you still have it. Those type of things can be managed and audited on an annual basis. Now, again, my internal audit department did not audit every record of every department and branch. They just weren't staffed like that. But there is a sampling that definitely should happen. And then, every 2 to 3 years, review your policies and procedures. We changed over the years our policies and procedures more times because of our growth. We weren't in two states anymore. We were then in 4 states and then 8 states. And then we were in the Northeast from Maine down, and all of a sudden we were in Florida. So we had to change our policies and procedures in accordance with those changes that made sense to put in there, that we then operated our program appropriately. With our records, you don't find that the retention life of your records changes every year. It doesn't. Some records never change retention lives at all. But it definitely makes sense to go and review your retention schedule every 2 to 3 years. Number one, any new records that are being created should be added to it. And you also want to see if any laws changed or there are new laws that you have to be in compliance with. And then finally, another example is a review of your records index. That's another tool that you can use to manage your program. And when that happens, that index can be, you're not waiting 2 to 3 years to change it. You're updating these tools when it happens. But this is kind of like the frequency every 2 to 3 years. These are the type of tools that can be audited at that frequency. Okay, we have a question from your experience. What kind of penalties have you seen if not providing audits? What I've seen, and it kind of went back to the penalty that got handed out to the bank who was committing fraud of $3 billion. The majority of times when I've heard about penalties, if this is, I don't know whether you heard that, that's the records management attack dog, Maximilian Julius Davis. He's in my office today. And apparently we have an evil person coming to our office door that he wants to make sure we don't compromise at all. What I found is that in the beginning, there's not so much financial fines. Unless it's a really bad case. Now that fraud example was huge. That was a very bad case. How that happened, and that went all the way up. They proved it went all the way up to senior management, certain senior managers in that company. So there was bad stuff going on, and they needed to penalize that. And $3 billion was the penalty. And I'm sure it got their attention. Most times, if you're finding that there are things found in an audit that shouldn't be happening, if it's the first time, they're going to give you the chance to fix it. Unless it's really egregious, unless it's really legally a problem. I've never seen jail time. I've seen small fines. I have seen them, quote unquote, put on probation, whatever that means, because we're not talking legal probation. But there are times where there may be a small fine. There may be a probationary period where there's going to be more frequent audits to make sure it's been corrected. And there also has to be some type of examples that you're taking the steps to correct the things that have been identified. For those people that have really broken the law and it's discovered in an audit standpoint, again, I don't know any numbers off the top of my head, but that fine needs to be something that really resonates with them to say, we're not going to do this again. All right. Thank you. I had to take a little drink there. The audit process. I like to talk about myself in the third person at times. So what I will tell you is Ray puts 4 steps into the audit process. Some people may put more. Ray puts 4. So I start out with the kickoff meeting because I want everybody on board with what we're doing. We perform the audit. Then we review the audit report with records management. And then records management has a post-audit response. And hopefully you're just saying thank you because everything was good. But if it's not, there's a way to respond. So let's talk about each one of them. It's always important to me that everybody's on the same page when it comes to an audit. So I'm going to bring my entire records management team. And if I'm the only person on the team, I'm the only person. If I've got multiple people, we're all in the same room. And we're going to bring the audit team in as well. Usually it's the general auditor, as well as any of the audit staff that are going to be a part of doing the audit for my department. One of the first things I want to do after the introductions is I want to review the last audit. How did you audit us last time? What were the good things that you found? Were there any bad things? If there were bad things, how did we address them? Hopefully the answer is yes, because if we did not address them, then that's not starting the next audit out on the right foot. So to the individual who says, what kind of penalties have you seen? When it comes to doing an audit and having things identified that needs to be fixed, if you don't fix them by the next audit, that's not starting out well with that next audit. You want to define the scope of the areas the audit will cover. Are they going to do everything? Are they going to cover paper records and electronic records and all those policies and procedures and all your tools? Or are they just going to narrow the scope this time? It's important that you understand what they're going to audit. Do you need to train the auditor? Now, I'm only going to make a comment about organizations that I have worked for. And that is that I have had more audits from internal auditors who either are new to the organization or have been with the organization but have never audited records management. And what they walk in with at the first audit are the notes taken by the previous auditor. And that bothers me because this new auditor is not starting from the position of knowledge. They are only starting with what the previous auditor is sharing with them, and you have to hope that their notes are complete and understandable. So if I find that this is a situation and this auditor has no knowledge of records management and is reading the notes from the last auditor, then before the audit starts, I will have them come over to my office, we'll schedule a meeting, and I will talk to them for an hour or two, whatever it takes, to give them an understanding of what records management is, how we do what we do, why we do what we do, and when we do it. Let them ask me any questions they want, and then we go to lunch. And if we got to come back from lunch and keep up the conversation, we do. But ultimately, I want an auditor who is auditing from the point of knowledge. They know what they're looking at. It's too easy to get over on it, and I hate to say it that way, but it's true. It is too easy to get over on an auditor or hide something from an auditor that doesn't know what they're looking at. I mean, that's probably self-explanatory, and I didn't need to say it, but I never did that. But I thought that's why I had him come over for a meeting. That's why we would talk for several hours and we would talk more during lunch. I wanted them to know everything that they should know. I didn't want anybody to be able to hold something back and them not realize it. So that's just my thoughts on training the auditor rather. Do what works best for you. But if you find you have somebody that's coming through your door to do an audit and they don't understand records management, don't just let them do the audit. Educate them. You want a qualified audit when it's all over. Obviously, define the time frame for the audit. Depending on what they're auditing, some things can be audited quicker than others. So are they there a month? Are they there 3 months? Usually they're not there. For me, they weren't there longer than that. But there were times where they could be. And then once everybody's comfortable and you've set the ground rules and you have the landscape all drawn out, then it's time to go and get the audit done. Now we perform the audit. Well, where will the audit work be done? That to me is also something that helps the audit and helps the auditors. I never want the auditors sitting in a cubicle within my department. Not because I don't want them there like they're going to see something they shouldn't see. Auditors, at least I have found over the years, auditors like to be in a quiet, calm environment so they can do their job. So if I have a conference room in my office that I can give them, oh, they're more than welcome to use the conference room. I don't care. Close the door. It's quiet. We'll put a sign up on the door. Only people in this conference room can be auditors. And that way they're close enough to get all the information they want or ask any questions they want, but they're in a calm, quiet environment to do the audit. I want their focus to be on the audit, not somebody who's telling the latest joke or who wants to tell you about the movie they saw on TV last night. That's not what we need. when in banking, when we would have the federal regulators come in, and purchasing and records management was off site. We had our offices, but we also had our own, we were out at the warehouse. I had multiple large conferences in my building, and I got to know all the federal regulators, just say hello, good morning, how are you? Start a conversation. One guy lived in the town next over from me, and we were talking about certain houses that were up for sale. Again, it gave them that calm environment. They were close enough to get up and drive over to whatever office they needed to get more information or make calls on the phone, but they were offsite at the warehouse. It was calm. It was quiet. They had their own kitchen, their own bathrooms. They were happy, and that's what matters. So, if you can get the auditors out of your busy work environment and into a calm, quiet work environment, that's going to be better for everybody. Who do they need access to for the information that they're going to use during that audit? If you're a one-person department and it's you, they're looking at then you are who they're going to come to. They may still come to you even if you have a full-fledged department. They're going to come to you, the manager. But it could be that you designate someone on your staff. If you need to talk about physical paper records, you're going to go to this person. If you're going to talk about electronic records, you're going to go to that person. If you're going to talk about on-site or off-site shredding, you're going to talk to this person over here. And that person may be responsible for more than one thing. Same thing with systems access. What level of systems access are they going to need for the audit? Is it going to be your records management software if you have it? Is it going to be being able to look into share drives and see where the records are being kept, or SharePoint, or line of business systems? What type of systems access are they going to need? And finally, when it's all said and done, after they do all of their analysis, and hopefully they're asking you questions along the way. Every time an audit was done for me, whether it was internal or external, the auditors, if they didn't understand something or they weren't sure about something, they would walk into my office and ask me a question. And I tell them that from the start. If something happens that takes you by surprise or doesn't make any sense to you, why we did it or why it was done, come in and ask me. And I'll tell you the same thing. It's the same thing we tell people who work for us in records management. If I tell you to do records management a certain way and you ask me why, and I can't tell you why, that's a problem. If I tell you to do something, there's a reason why, and I will be able to totally define why you should do it. And you should be able to help an auditor out the same way. All right. Audit report is reviewed with records management. So audit provides their findings, however long the report needs to be. Step 2, records management needs to listen. Don't cop an attitude. Don't sit there and cross your arms and have a puss on your face. I have seen that response from more people than you can imagine. And that just communicate, the body language is horrible. And I'm not saying you got to sit there and have that cheesy smile on your face either, but just be receptive to what they're saying and listen to what they're saying. They're the professionals when it comes to audit. So respect that. Well, first off, what was the positives that came from the audit? Hopefully they start there. What were the things you're doing right that they were very happy with, that they found no problem with, and they went big thumbs up, this is great. And then what did they find that, maybe there needs to be corrective action? And hopefully there's only one thing, or maybe there's a little bit more, but understand what needs corrective action, and then understand that you're going to have to provide a response to audit. It's not going to happen that day, but you're going to have to provide a response to audit. You acknowledge what they said, and here's what you're going to do to fix it. And then obviously before you leave that meeting, you have to ask them, how long do you have time for to correct those issues? If you're being audited on an annual basis, it could be they give you 3 months, 6 months, because it could be that some things just can't be changed overnight. But some things can be corrected fairly quickly. Other things take a little bit longer. So I have found that under normal circumstances, they would like a resolution to any of the issues unless they realize it's more in depth. They usually want it within 3 months max. 6 months maybe, but usually, 3-month time period. Let's talk about records management's post-audit response. Again, if you're the only one in records management, then you're going to create the response. But if you have a team, bring the whole team in. They should have been sitting in there with the listening to the audit response, the audit report, so they have an understanding of what has been shared by audit. And you need to create the response. Again, you want to start out by thank you for the audit, blah, blah, blah. As you indicated, the following things you were very pleased with, blah, blah, blah. And now you start to talk about the things that need corrective action. So you're going to define each one of the issues, the steps it's going to take to correct those issues, and the reporting and updating that will happen because of those corrections. And that needs to be sent back in an agreed upon time frame to audit, and they'll document they've received it, and then action has to happen. If you have things to fix, don't put it up on the shelf. Develop plans from that day, what you're going to do and who's going to do it, how they're going to do it, and how long it's going to take. And make sure that you honor the timeline that you said you would, because we're going to talk about something called your reputation, and that means the world. And if the reputation starts out with you make promises you can't keep, that's very tough to change down the road. So make sure that your audit response acknowledges everything that needs to be done and how you're going to address it, how you're going to comply with it, and then start moving forward. All right, what can be reviewed during an audit? I guess the easiest thing to say is what can't be reviewed during an audit. I mean, anything can, but I find that audits will happen based off of different things. Like, what tools do you use? So they can audit the records inventory, the retention schedule. If you have a records index, your policies and procedures, what software are you using? What systems are you using? These are the tools that you're using, and they may do an audit specifically on these. They can audit your physical records from the moment that those records are captured to how they're stored. In the beginning, it was departmental storage. Then we had records room storage. I had my in-house record center of 10,000 square feet storing, boxes and files until we went to third-party offsite record center storage. So, all of that can be audited. How is the retrieval and access of physical records, the retention and disposition, and on-site and off-site shredding. So these are different things within your physical records program that can be audited. Your electronic records, the same thing. How do you capture it? How do you store it? Is it records management software? Or you're using line of business systems, or maybe using ShareDrive or SharePoint. And yes, the two in red are saying, no, don't do that. Do not store records in email. What did you say, Ray? Ray said, don't store your records in email. Please don't store your records in email. And the same thing with USB drives. You can't access USB drives if they're sitting in a drawer, and most USB drives are not labeled properly. So what you have is potential records on a storage device that, unless you access it, you have no idea what you've got. So don't store them there in the first place. I understand that sometimes we move records around using USB drive. Got that? And just make sure you don't store them there forever. And obviously with electronic records, security and access. You can do things from an administration standpoint. Do you do background and security checks, not only for your employees, but for the vendors that you use as well? And how frequently do you redo those background security checks? What job descriptions do you have for the employees in your department? Are those job descriptions up to date and accurate? Is there compliance with legal and regulatory requirements? Invoice processing. You can check your invoices and make sure that the services are being provided that you are contracting for at the pricing and frequency that they should be, but that the services actually happened. Because I know you're going to be shocked, but there are times you can be invoiced for services that never happened. I'm sure a lot of you are going, no, Ray, really? Could that happen? Yes, it can happen. What are your policies and procedures? Preservation of prior audits. Yes, keep your prior audits. Always use that to know that you're moving forward year after year and you didn't revert to doing something now that you used to do back then that you shouldn't be doing. And administrative training. A trained employee is a knowledgeable employee, and that's what you need. But overall, we're saying, are you following the records management life cycle? Are you following it? So you've identified how your records are created and received. You have them available for use and modification if need be. While they're in your systems, whether physical or electronic, that you're maintaining them and you're protecting them. But the big one is dispose and destroy. When was the last time you destroyed records that were eligible for destruction? Paper or electronic? Now, we've talked about retention before. Unless it's for certain things like medical records that require you to destroy the records as soon as a particular time frame hits, The majority of legal citations on records are just the legal life, and you keep them past that, you're not breaking the law. You kept them for as long as you have to. So then you have to decide, for value purposes, should we keep them longer? And if that's the choice you're making and you're not destroying records because of that, that's fine. But your retention schedule should note why you're keeping them longer. But, you know, I know organizations that could say they've never destroyed records. They keep everything forever. And other organizations follow their disposition and destruction schedules to the T, every 3 months, 6 months, once a year, whatever the policy and procedure says you should do. But that's another thing that the audit is also tracking. Are you following the records management lifecycle? And we're going to finish up today with the value gained from an audit. And one of the words I already used, I will tell you I did this on purpose. I didn't. I just put them in alphabetical order. So I will tell you the value is an ART, ARRTT. That was a bad joke. I admit that. But value from your audit is accountability. You're taking control of your records program, and you are managing your programs the way they should in compliance with the law. You're protecting your organization, your clients, and your fellow employees. You realize the accountability and you're accepting it. You're also building a reputation, a very good reputation, by the way. And I can tell you that reputations take a long time to build a positive one, and stupid things, bad decisions can ruin your reputation in a heartbeat. So work to earn that good reputation. You got to earn it, and do everything you can to make sure that reputation is a positive one. From running your program right and helping out your end users, being that resource they need, and especially with the audit department coming in and checking up and providing that glowing audit report for you, you develop a level of respect. I respect auditors. They have a job to do. They respect me. They know I have a job to do. I'm not there to stop them from doing their job. I will do everything I can to give them everything they need to do the audit in my area, and hopefully come back with a report that says, Ray's doing it right and so is his team. But if by chance, something should be changed that I didn't know about, I want to know about it. So audit is going to bring that out. You're obviously bringing teamwork to the table. Teamwork between your own staff, your own organization, and the auditors, whether they're internal or external. Records management doesn't happen on its own. It's not, and you may be a one-person records manager, but there are so many people in your organization that you're coming in contact with that it just, you have to understand that you're all working together as a team. And I guess the last part of value is transparency. Look at my program anytime. You don't have to wait for a year. Come back in 6 months. Come back in 9 months. I don't care. Walk through the door anytime. You can audit myself and my department at any opportunity that you want. And finally, you're strengthening business relationships. And that's what it's all about. And it comes back to teamwork. Everybody's working together, but everybody plays a role. Everybody's doing their thing. We all respect that. And we're strengthening those business relationships. So anytime I need to talk to them or they need to talk to me, they don't look nervous when they walk through the door. I don't look nervous when they walk through the door. We smile, we shake hands, we sit down, and we have that good conversation because we've got an extremely strong business relationship. All right, congratulations. We've completed class 4. We've talked about all these things with an audit. What is an audit? Why would you audit? Types of audits, the frequency, the process, what can be reviewed, and the values gained. Next week, 2 weeks from now, preview of the last class. Ready or not, here IA comes, the biggest requested topic that we had out of the last end of last semester's survey, AI, artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about that next week, 2 weeks from now, from the evolution of artificial intelligence to the types, how it's used, the risks, the rewards, and the future. Can't get out of here without a Records Management Extreme Championship performance tip. And yes, it deals with auditing. I will tell you right now, if you're starting as a records manager for a new company, or you're being promoted to records manager within your current company, request an audit immediately, as soon as possible. You may ask why. Why, Ray? Why would I do that? That's a great question. Thank you for asking. You need to request an audit as soon as possible because you need a clean break from the previous administration. You weren't responsible for what was happening prior to that first day when you walked in the door to run that program. somebody else was. So it's important that the audit reflects on how that program was being run before you got there. Also very important, what was not being done properly. So now you have a starting point of things to fix, and now you have a time period where now this is your show, and you're going to go back and fix the things that needed to be fixed and make sure you implement any things into the program that you wanted. The audit will define the issues that you'll have to address. Again, be comforted in you're going to sit in that first audit meeting and nothing that's in that audit report is reflective on you. It's going to be reflective on the previous administration, and but you will be required to fix those problems. All right, that's it for today. I want to thank you for joining us today for our class. Join us again April 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Class 5, the last class of the semester. Ready or not, here IA comes. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Look forward to talking to you in 2 weeks. If you do want to reach out to me, feel free, send me any correspondence. Send me an email at raymond.davis@id-llc.com. Ask me any questions, give me any tips or feedback. Love to hear from you. So again, thank you very much. Take care, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.